Welcome to the Valley of Outlaws podcast, a podcast for those looking to take the road less trodden, and a podcast for those seeking more. Tom, you are Outlaw number 27, title which you could take with you for the rest of your life. It's an honour to have you here. I like to get people on who doing stuff differently, follow their passions and build their own kind of things and build their life how they want it to be. So it's fantastic to have you and to hear your story, hopefully. But I always like to ask.
That's such a big number. Like that's like the year that everyone dies, like Jim Morrison and Amy
Heath
Winehouse.
Ledger.
They all die at 27. So
Jimi Hendrix, wasn't it? There was a few
I don't
of
know
them.
if that means I'm under threat or the podcast's under threat.
Well, let's see. Let's see if I get to the next episode. I think that might be more the problem.
That's basically the question, isn't it? Yeah.
Anyway, I like to ask my guests all the same question, which is, in your own words, tell me who you are, what you do, and why do you do what you do?
Great question. Well, my name's Tom. I run a pizza business with my brother James called Pizza Pilgrims, which we started on a market stall in March 2012. And we now run pizzerias across the country. Why do I do what I do? I started what I do because I didn't really have anything else I wanted to do. And we'd grown up in pubs and hospitality was in our blood, much to our parents' annoyance, I guess. So, you know, we always wanted to get into hospitality and that felt quite inevitable to us. Why do I still do it? I think I still do it because I just think hospitality has got incredible power to be a huge part of young people's formative years and actually, you know, give them skills and opportunities that they will carry through the rest of their lives. And so I love the opportunity to work with young people on a daily basis and, you know, provide them with a working environment that hopefully is safe, is educational, is fun, and is making a difference to whatever their future prospects are.
Fantastic. And I want to kind of go back to school and ask you, again, a question which I think is really interesting to understand. But what was the vision you had for yourself when you were younger and what you thought you were going to be, and how different has it turned out in reality?
I think pretty different. I think, you know, there was school was very much of the opinion that the kind of corporate job was the be all and end all of achievement. So it was, you know, it was very much like A-levels, degree, grad scheme, success was kind of the kind of the path. And I think, you know, I think that's changing. I think potentially changing, you know, faster than reality in terms of like, you know, the kind of the rise of doing your own thing as a sort of dream career for many is, you know, in some ways ill-advised, but in many ways exciting that is now considered a genuine option. Whereas I just don't think there was ever a situation where I was presented with that option at school. It was very much like you do this, and then if you don't do that, you know, kind of you pick up the pieces and try and figure out what else you're going to do. And I just think that is changing, which is great to see. I mean, I maintain that, like, you know, everyone's like, oh, it's such a big risk, or you do such a big risk. The only time to take a risk like this really is when you're young, because you don't. It's not. I mean, it is obviously a risk, and you know, we were all very fortunate to come from places where potentially, you know, there wasn't quite such financial risk as others, but ultimately it was a risk. We didn't take any money off anyone to do what we did, and it was a huge risk at that time. I mean, it was 10 grand, which, you know, is not going to potentially be life altering, but it was 10 grand of our own money. It was the biggest risk we'd ever taken, and we didn't have anything or anyone relying on us to deliver. And so, yeah, I just think, you know, waiting until you've done X, Y, and Z and, you know, you're mid-30s and you've got a mortgage and a kid, like that's when it's risky to start your own thing.
Yeah. I remember when I first started my own stuff, people said they were jealous because I was 22, 23, doing kind of bespoke wallpapers and that kind of stuff. And they were like, I'm so jealous of you because I've always wanted to do my thing and I waited too long. And it is that case, you build up these kind of like barriers and you get used to that paycheck, you get used to that way of living, and it's quite hard to go back down to a lower level, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think parents, you know, rightly or wrongly, they want to be like, right, cool, got them into PwC. My work is done. I can go and you know, my contractual obligation is filled. Now it's over to them, and I think that is part of the problem. It's just like, right, I got them to where they needed to be, and then if they change their mind, that's on them. Whereas I think, you know, if you go out of school, right, I'm going to go and start a bespoke wallpaper business,
Yeah.
I think they'd probably sit there a little more at night going, is that going to definitely be
Well, they gave me a
thing
timeline.
sorted?
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You get in these
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
things, you get a year to achieve this, you get a year to achieve that, and if there's
yeah,
progress, then you get another year. It's
yeah.
it is interesting. I mean, did you have
And they're not wrong. Let's be clear, they're not wrong. Like, the stats do not lie. Like, it is,
yeah,
if you are in any way a statistician, starting your own business is the path of it's the rockier path for sure. But I think you can't live your life as risk management.
no, agreed. When you were back at school as well, it was interesting. I went and did a talk at my old prep school, Molesford, and we talked about the idea of the fear of embarrassment, doing stuff, and actually people not doing things because they were scared of the embarrassment they would have if they failed. Did you ever kind of in your mind have a fear that what would people think if this didn't work out, or was there anything which was really stopping you and you guys just had to break through it?
Absolutely, I think that fear is at every turn, and I think we were telling a lot of people in the early days that we were gonna what we hoped to do, and I would say the vast majority of the responses were like, "What the hell are you thinking? This is not a good idea. Like, you've got the job that you want. Just like stick at it, and you'll be fine." And actually, I remember so vividly the first person who was like, "Oh my God, this is such a great idea. You have to do it. Like, this is brilliant, brilliant, brilliant." And that, that feeling was just such a powerful one. Like, oh my God, someone believes in this. But yeah, I absolutely the fear. I remember so vividly going back to university. It was probably like 4 or 5 years after we left university, maybe a little longer. And we were all having dinner or whatever, and everyone was, PwC, law, finance, all that jazz. And they're all very successful for their age or whatever. And I had just literally gone, "Oh, I'm quitting my job to go and start a pizza truck," and everyone was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I basically had like a sort of mini breakdown on the day. I was like, "What the hell am I doing? This doesn't seem like a good idea." And it's a lot, and I think it's a huge part of why people don't do it. Of course, fear of failure is a massive thing, but what is failure? Define failure.
Exactly.
Like, if you haven't got anything, is it really a failure if you don't get anything on top of it? But I always think and feel quite strongly that, like, right now, Pilgrims is every day it's a bigger risk almost than it was before, because we've built something that's a real thing, and actually the risk
Yeah,
of losing it is a
got
real
more to
thing. Whereas
lose.
going to start a market stall when you hate your job and you don't have a mortgage and you've not got a massive amount to lose is, how big a risk is that? It's just not that big a risk.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Was kind of the hospitality space then a passion for you without you realizing when you were young? Obviously, you said your parents ran pubs and you're in that kind of world. Was that something which you think inevitably you were going to fall into, this kind of space and kind of creating something which was maybe food or drink based or something like that?
I think when I look back on it, there is an inevitability to it. And I think, we did grow up in a hospitality environment. Our parents were, loved hosting, and we had people around all the time. And we obviously lived above a pub, spent a lot of time in the pub, talking to people, worked in the pub whilst at uni, all that stuff. So, that environment of, being surrounded by people you don't necessarily know, and that kind of constant, like, new kind of noise in the room and stuff. I think that it was 100% there. If you'd said to my 19-year-old self, "Is this, is hospitality a passion of yours?" I don't think I'd have said yes. I don't think it's like something that I kind of woke up every morning thinking, "How do I get my own place?" Very much more passionate about football or music. I
Yeah,
remember applying
yeah,
to
yeah.
loads of jobs, working for record labels and that kind of thing, and going to gigs, and that was like my passion. But it was hospitality an environment that I felt incredibly comfortable in? Yes. And actually, the more you had money to go and spend on going out, like, that was something you were doing. The fact is, when we left uni, you didn't have money to go out. You never went out for dinner because you didn't have enough money. So yeah, but so I think passion is not quite the right word, but certainly, like, it was a space I felt hugely comfortable in. And but I was not a chef. My brother was a chef, and he very much led the kind of food. Could we actually do something then? Because he was the one who could cook and had done you know jobs in catering before.
Mhm, mhm. Fantastic. Do you want to talk about your kind of journey as well and how you guys started it from the market stall? Because I know you did this whole trip through Italy and that kind of experience. Like, just to set the scene, I guess, for people to understand how you went about building Pizza Pilgrims.
Yeah, well, I think, we, like I said, we kind of started to realize that maybe running a hospitality business would be something that we would enjoy doing. Um, I think that came in sharper focus, having worked in a kind of more office environment. And so it's just like, oh no, I definitely want something that's not an office environment. And then we had the idea to do. We wanted to do a pub initially. We didn't have enough money. We couldn't raise the money. We didn't have any way to get the amount of money you need to start a pub. Um, and then at that time, the street food scene in London was exploding. It was suddenly a really um, big space, and like there were brands being built in that space, like high quality brands doing great stuff. And for the first time, it was like, okay, so you can go and start a food business on a truck and build a legit brand using Twitter, which had pretty much just landed on the scene a few years earlier. And you're creating something that's quality and can actually make a name for itself with incredibly low startup cost. This is all in the context of like post the financial crash and stuff, like people kind of reevaluating. Obviously, lots of people who'd lost their jobs, reevaluating what they wanted to do, and there's a whole new wave of people kind of going into this world. Anyway, we saw a number of people doing cool stuff in the space, particularly the guys from Meat Liquor. Obviously, were out there in Peckham doing their thing. Well, it was called Meat Wagon then, and yeah, we were like, well, we can absolutely, this would be the way to start because you can do it with no money. Uh, then we sort of reserved the space and realized no one was doing pizza, which we didn't quite understand why because it was such an obvious food stuff. Turns out the reason why is you have to carry around a 1-ton pizza oven, which makes it a higher barrier to entry than doing tacos or burgers. And so yeah, we were like, well, pizza is the thing we should do. Let's do pizza. And then we went and did our first ever event, which was like someone booked us to go and do a 21st birthday. Um, God knows how we got that booking. I can't remember, but I remember we did the whole thing from start to finish, and we're just like, oh, we don't know anything about pizza. I get it. We need to kind of get under the skin of this, and we genuinely didn't. The pizza thing was kind of a new to the thing. Anyway, so we realized at that point that if we were going to do this, we had to go and learn about pizza. And we also realized that you need a vehicle to carry a 1 ton pizza oven around in. So those things all conspired together. And I was like, well, the vehicle we want is that amazing 3-wheeled Ape from Italy. Piaggio Ape, it's called. And so we're like, well, why don't we go and get that from Italy? Because it's cheaper to buy it in Italy than it is in the UK. And then we'll drive it back. And on the way, we'll go and meet as many people who make pizza as we possibly can and learn about pizza. And then hopefully when we come back, we'll have a vehicle and a bit more knowledge, and we can actually start the business. And that was when the Pizza Pilgrimage was born.
And how did your kind of then relationship with the pizza and the idea of all the pizza change on that journey? Did you learn to appreciate the art of it more and the meaning it had to Italy and different parts of Italy? You go to Naples, you
Massively
go
so.
to
Massively so. I think we really did not know the difference, and I think it was a different time. Like the pizza in the high street in the UK, particularly, was pretty basic. And Franco Manca had basically just started. I think like there were like 2 Franco Mancas, and like there were maybe a couple of other Neapolitan pizzerias in London, but certainly I'd not eaten at them. And yeah, so we went to Italy very much being like, okay, Italy pizza. We'll just drive the whole way through and we'll learn about pizza. But it was you get to Naples, you have your first pizza in Naples, and you're like, oh, okay, this is different. How have I never had a pizza like this before? And I think we genuinely had that first pizza in Damichele in Naples, and we're just like, okay, we need to, this is what we're going to try and get to. This is something special.
and how did your kind of approach into the whole process of making it kind of change as well? Like you have that pizza and you go, well, this is another level. Do you kind of go and try and interact with the chefs or break it down, or are you trying to just kind of understand, I guess, maybe a feeling and a kind of cultural authenticity and sensation you're getting from that?
I mean, the Italians are absolute masters of making things feel like they're about more than the sum of the parts. That is just such an incredible skill that nation has. And bear in mind, this is a nation that has existed for 150 years or something, and they are absolutely, they've managed to make themselves synonymous with food. Like it's an incredible achievement if you think about it. The French have done similar, but they've done it over like 1,000 years plus. The Italians have done it in no time, and I think they are absolutely. It's obviously born of truth that they are a nation obsessed with food and ingredients and quality, but they've done an amazing job of making it feel completely seamless. And so yeah, they're brilliant at making like the passion and the love and the quality of the ingredients be essential to making something great. Ultimately, making great pizza is a very technical thing. It's not, it is about understanding gluten and yeast and proving and that kind of stuff. And I think that's the bit that we wanted to discover. I mean, when we went on our trip, long story short, we ended up taking a camera crew and filming it because the person we met, I mentioned earlier, who suggested we should definitely do this, also said, like, if you're doing this trip, you should get someone to film it and make a TV show out of it, which we hadn't occurred to us. So we did actually take a camera crew on a complete whim that we would end up getting it filmed and turned into a show, which we did end up happening, but not the way we wanted it to. But long story short, we had a camera crew when we went to these pizza places, and what was amazing is the camera crew just gave our whole project so much legitimacy within the space that you would then say to them, hey, can we go and get into your dough kitchen? Can we chat to the chef? Can we? And it gave us access that I think otherwise would have been told to like get on a bike, basically. So yeah, so we really, but we did like obsess. We were kind of like, James went back and worked in a pizzeria after we got back from the original pilgrimage in Naples for a month, and we go back all the time. And those people, that we met then, we're still kind of friends with now in terms of like, we still hang out with them. The guy who owns Dan Michele is a guy called Alessandro. And he's in my phone now, and I chat with him WhatsApp, and like they let us do like last summer we went back to Naples and did our sort of 10th anniversary pilgrimage on a special Vespa pizzeria that we built, and they Dan Michele let us host the final party there, and we put our name above the door and we cooked in their oven, and like it's been a real kind of, we've built that relationship over time because Naples is a very special place, but they're very passionate people, and they I think they like the fact that we've kind of put everything we have into it. That's kind of given us the seal of approval to get their approval, if that makes sense.
And in terms of, okay, when you're meeting these people, realizing that the levels they need to get to, what points, or did you have any points where you went, oh God, are we actually going to be able to achieve this? Because I remember when I first started doing the wallpapers and stuff, and I was like, I'm going to do this. And then I figured out the technicality of what you need to do and the difficulty, and you go, Christ, I need to like seriously be amazing at this for us to be really, really good. Like, and it's some people that scares them a bit and they pull back and maybe they go, oh, maybe this is too much for me. Like, did you have moments when you were like, right, like we might not be able to achieve this. We might have to think something else. Or was it always like 100% in, no matter what hurdle comes, we're going to get there and make this kind of work?
I think we definitely had feelings of like, are we going to be able to do this? Is there something that we can definitely recreate? Is this, back then just getting the ingredients was hard. Like, the specific flour we wanted wasn't easy to just go and get it. Whereas now you can get it in a million places.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. But I think we absolutely had doubts. I think part of starting anything is like getting through the doubts, because they will come. And I think you've got to sort of have the doubt in order that you're kind of constantly feeling a bit of pressure to make sure you're going to get over it, but also feel confident that like, with the right time and energy. And I think we just put so much into constantly improving. So I look back at the pizzas we were making in the early days, and they were not, you can tell a lot by just looking at a pizza now after however many years of doing it. You can tell those pizzas were not great pizzas. And I think something that I'm super proud of, I guess, at Pizza Pilgrims is like, I genuinely think our pizza gets better every year still. And like we constantly reinvest into how do we make this better? What's the next step? We've just changed our tomatoes after tasting 27 varieties of tomatoes. We've just upped our tomatoes to what we think is a much better product, costing the business a huge amount of money. Had to like push it through the board and all that jazz, but it undoubtedly makes the product better. And I think every term where we've been given the opportunity, we've always made the product better. And that comes obviously through process, through people, through produce. There's so many ways to do that. And I think, we'll continue to do that. But, I think the pizza we make today is fantastic and as good as, pizza you can get in Naples. I would really hope that to be the case. But, it's then like, what's next? How do we get it better again? So, yeah, it is that kind of obsession, I think, that's got us through. And we'll continue to, I think.
And how, when you got back, how quickly did you kind of like build your team? Were you guys on your own for a while, or did you quickly go and say, right, we need to bring some other kind of experts in who understand the space? Or
No, we had zero experts. It was me and my brother and one other guy to begin with, and then we sort of had a couple of, we had sort of, yeah, sort of a collection of people who kind of helped us out. But I think we probably didn't employ. Well, I remember to this day because he still works for us. It would have been May 2013, so just over a year after we started, and we hired a guy called Tom who had emailed us. He came over from Belfast. He taught himself Neapolitan pizza. He wasn't Italian at all. He was from Belfast. But I remember him coming over. We're like, yeah, come down to the van. Like, always looking for people. Like, obviously, truth being, we not no one had ever emailed us saying, can we come and work for you? Anyway, he came, and I remember him making the first pizza, and we were like, oh my god, this guy really can make pizza. That's amazing. And he became, he became our first sort of employee, really, our first like proper employee, I suppose. And was is still in the business today. He's now a head of menu analytics and procurement.
Oh, fantastic.
And he's a very analytical guy. He's one of those people just everything he puts his hand to he's good at. He's a very good drummer. He's very good at like using his hands and stuff. He's very analytical. And yeah, he's been with us for, well, coming up to 12 years. And the business has only been going for 13, so it's not a bad effort.
But at that starting point when you came back and you figured out what the kind of direction you wanted to go in, like what was your kind of plans at that time? Like, were you thinking, well, we'll carry on doing the street market, might open one restaurant, or?
Genuinely, what I thought was I hated advertising. Did I really believe like working on a market stall where I can't really cook and was for me? I was like, I think what this is going to be is an awesome 1 year project. I think James is going to lead this. This is a small business that James can run and make a living out of. I'd done the numbers at about a fag packet, and I was like, we need to turn over 100 grand a year in order to, in order to make this work. And so I was like, realistically, I'll help James get this off the ground. It'll be a great like point for my CV, and it'll be like an inflection point for me able to change career essentially. Because, like I say, post financial crash, you couldn't just change career that easily. It was the job market was still recovering. So I was like, there'll just be a great thing to show that I'm like a doer and I can go and do stuff, and then I'll use it to go and get a proper job. So that was the extent of my ambition, like basically do a year. And actually when we got back, because it was obviously, we didn't have money to just sit around. And so I actually got a job after the pilgrimage. I worked for the Week magazine, and I used to, go in the morning, do my morning. Then for my lunch break, I'd go down and I would work on the market stall with my brother. And then I'd go back to the office in the afternoon. And I probably did that for like, I probably got that job in January, I reckon. And we started on the market in March. And I reckon by May, I was like, I reckon this is, there's enough here for me to like throw everything in on this. And I was like, I'll do a summer. And then by September of 2012, it was like, okay, we've got through a summer and there's loads of opportunity coming up and I can see this growing. And I think that was the point where I was like, right, I think I'm going to give this a year, see where we get to it. And then we did a winter outside, and we were like, we're never doing that again. And I think it was probably like January, February 2013 where we were like, potentially bricks and mortar was a thing. We started to build a really big name for ourselves being in Soho. Our first market was in the middle of Soho on Berwick Street. So we had managed to like build a name for ourselves on Twitter and that kind of stuff. Lots of, movers and shakers around there. So we'd started to like be a thing that people were talking about, certainly in the centre of London. And so that was probably the first time and having done a winter, which was really hard, it was like, maybe this could be a bricks and mortar business. But we genuinely did not sort of set out with the intention that to do anything like where we'd ended up. So we've been very lucky.
I find it fascinating, especially with this whole thing of you thinking, well, I'll be here to help your brother build this as well. But evidently you got more involved and your passion for it grew as you saw there was potentially more and more potential.
And I think as I realised, I guess what I sort of felt was like, well, he's the chef. So what really can I bring to the pie, apart from like maybe just a bit of kind of spare pair of hands? But actually, obviously, you quickly realise that, starting a business is not just the sort of sexy bit. It's also like a lot of the planning and admin and, building stuff. And I'm kind of probably a bit better than that than James. So between us, it was like, okay, cool. No, there really is a lot for me to do here. And there's a lot I can see I can help with. And yeah, you just, every day you're like, oh, I've got to do that. And then that opens 3 doors and suddenly you're swamped. And, it's like anything, it just takes a bit of time.
100%. And
Yeah.
so, at that point, you then had to start considering, fundraising and trying to get some investment in to really grow. So,
Yeah. Once we realized that a pizzeria was going to be the next potential step, that obviously required fundraising. We did not have the money to do that ourselves, so we set about trying to find people to who would be willing to take a punt on us, and that's what we did. And I think yeah, the investors that invested us then are still with us today. The chairman who was our number one investor is still our chairman. What we found so helpful is the people coming in were bringing genuine insight, help, points of view, experience, all stuff that we were like, oh my God, like these people are actually going to help us. It's not just here's a pile of money, come back when it's done. And I still think to this day, like unless you're supremely confident or supremely experienced, and obviously, the world of tech and stuff is a completely different animal. But for us, we were starting out. We'd never run a business before. We'd never run a restaurant business before. There's all the elements from PR to building to finance to everything, procurement, the whole lot. And actually, we were like, okay, so these people are experts in these fields, and they're going to give us some money and also give us their time to help us understand this stuff. And that's where we've always just been like sponges for like what we can learn. And and it's not just us. I think it's really important that your red lines, because obviously what you don't want is them coming in and going, well, I did it this way, you should do it the same. You do want to hear how they did it though, and then you want to kind of go, well, how does that affect my point of view on how I thought I was going to do that? You don't want to be obstinate, but like what's that sort of great phrase? Is like you want like strong convictions loosely held, basically, of just like you really have a point of view about what you're about, but you've got to be willing to, like, in the face of someone who's an expert going, that's a shit idea, or the market going, no one's bought it, you've got to be able to like roll with the punches and change the plan.
100%. Yeah. And it goes about being, I guess, curating also and really being selective of who you trust to bring in to be an investor as well. You can't just say yes and open the door to everyone and anyone.
Completely. And also, making sure that you're still in control of it and that you have the final word. And we were very, very clear that like they're coming in for what was a sizable percentage, still a minority though, but it was my brother's business, and we would be the ones deciding how we go forward. But yeah, we've always been, we've always listened to our board, and they've always really helped us, and we've learned a huge amount from them. And I think, to your point earlier, like it makes it feel more real and makes you feel a bit more like, God, I've got to deliver now. And that's the extra kind of, sometimes the extra push you need to make it a success.
Oh, 100%. When you're growing and building something like this, how do you maintain the authenticity that you had of that market stall and the brand and the quality of the pizzas, everything like that, and how do you maintain it as you grow? And also, you can't have the same thing, but how do you kind of maintain the essence of it and what Pizza Pilgrims was for you at the start?
I think it's very hard, and I think it's something we put a hell of a lot of energy into. I think, I mean, it depends exactly what you're talking about. I would say when it comes to the product, which we're a very product-led company, the product just gets better. I genuinely believe, like, the classic line is, as you get bigger, product gets worse, because at every turn you're taking decisions to reduce it to make more money, essentially. We haven't found that at all. At every turn, not only do we have more buying power to be able to buy better stuff for at least the same amount of money, if not less, but we've learned more, and we've always applied that, how do we make this better, back into the product. So we've always iterated up. Plus, we've been able to hire fantastic people, some of whom have got 20, 30, 40 years experience in pizza, and they now dictate, a big part of how we improve that product. So, we've always found, and I can see how it happens the other way. Of course I can, but we've always been obsessed about pizza. It's always been our raison d'etre is to be good at making pizza. And I think at every turn we've made decisions to improve that product and make it better and invest more in it and learn and develop. So yeah, I don't think, from that point of view, I don't think we've strayed from where we started out. I think, in terms of the word authenticity, I mean, what exactly does that mean? I think, me and James are still in control of the business. want it to be run in the way that we originally ran the business in the first place. We still want it to stand for the same stuff and have the same point of view and look after its people and, develop at the right rate and not, pile up mountains of debt to open faster or anything. We always wanted to, stay in control of it. So we've really tried to do that, and we've spent a lot of the time in the last year trying to like articulate what that's about. But ultimately, it all comes down to people, and it's making sure that at every tier of the organisation, you've got people who believe in what you're trying to do and are able to bring something to the party to continue to allow you to do it. Obviously, the more senior those people are, the better. We've been very, very lucky to have some people who joined the company now, sometimes 6, sometimes 10 years ago, who really get what we're about and really help us enforce that. And the most important thing is that we continue to hire people who believe in the same thing and help us to do it. And that we're there to kind of, I think, with anything, it's not the mistakes you make that define you, it's what you do about them. And so I think, we are a company that, as you get bigger, as you have over 500 employees or whatever, like listening to what's causing drama and then understanding how you can affect it is a massive part of it. So, we've set up, for example, a thing called Hospitality Heroes, where every pizzeria has an elected person who's not a part of the management. We meet once a quarter and we talk about all the stuff that's, challenging and all the stuff that's good, and how we do more of that. And that becomes an amazing forum for us to understand like where the difficulties are and how we improve them. And then every quarter we meet again and discuss what was discussed and what we've done about it. And that holds us very accountable. And I think it's important to have that in the business and make sure that we're constantly learning, because truth is that I'm 41 now. When I started Pizza Pilgrims, I was probably about the kind of age that someone we might employ and had the sort of same challenges and demands and worldview potentially as they we were sort of the same as our employees, whereas now it's 13 years down the line. I'm not entirely sure what we've got to understand the challenges and wants and desires of a slightly different generation of people, and I think that's really important that we continue to do that. So it's a constant battle. There's no like, cool, that's done, see you in a year. Like it's just constantly listening, it's reiterating, reevaluating, putting in ways for people to communicate with each other and up and down and round and round. So
and as you hire more people, how hard or easy is it to learn to like delegate and give people the freedom to grow and build what they need to do in their own space as well, rather than we could talk about bosses being really controlling, it has to be like this, micromanaging, or you can be quite like a loose boss who allows people to kind of flex and really see how they can grow into that space. How hard is that to like delegate and actually do that, especially when you've built this yourself, and you obviously want standards you want to maintain, and you've got an idea of what you'll do. How hard is it to delegate that kind of like freedom and control to others?
It's really interesting. For me personally, I'm not good at being halfway on this stuff. So I'm pretty good at going, right, I trust you implicitly. Here's the thing. I'm not going to look at it. You go and run it. Like, that's fine. I'm also very good at being like, right, here's the thing that I'm interested in. I'm going to delve into like every single tiny bit of it and like understand everything and like work, not dictate, but work very, very closely with you to understand how we move that bit forward. What I'm not good is being in the middle. So like, here's a little bit of a problem that, maybe, you'd want a point of view on. I'm not good at going like, oh, I don't, just with a little, then I'm in. So I've got much better at letting, I think, maybe others will say differently, but I think, some big stuff, like I don't really look, for example, at sales and numbers anymore, because we've got so many brilliant people looking at it, understanding the trends, understanding the ups and downs and the whys and the wherefores. Like for me to plow in as well is just wasted resource, really. So, I don't look at that stuff. There are other things I really do obsess about. It's really tricky because, I think particularly as someone who has started a company and taken that risk, I think the assumption is that most people want that similar like white bit of paper and they just want to be given complete free reign to do anything that they want to do in their own way with their own stamp on it. I think the truth is that maybe the majority of people don't want that. They want freedom to like influence stuff and have what they obviously don't want to be like dictated to. but they don't want like, hey, this is your pizzeria, go and do it exactly how you want to do it. They want to know like what perceived good looks like. They want to know what they need. Sorry, someone just rang the doorbell. You know, they want they want some guidance on what the job looks like, and I think it's our job to give them that guidance and give them the procedures to deal with stuff that's going to, you know, cause challenges on them, but also allow them to have their own stamp and run pizzeria in certain ways in their own way. And one of our values is be yourself, and like allowing each manager and head chef and team to run a pizzeria slightly in their own image, I think is important.
Yeah, no, completely. Allowing people to grow as well, I think, is essential for any boss, allowing them to grow into who they could be in that space. Is so
Yeah,
it's a really hard skill to learn and develop. But I think it's essential.
it's really hard, and I think it's hospitality's superpower, and we're so lucky. You know, people who come up through the business who've we have a group of people called the 5 Year Club who've been with us more than 5 years, obviously, and like watching so many of those people, you know, start with us as someone very, very low down the perceived hierarchy and ended up much higher up in getting into head office and becoming more and more senior. It's just it's great to see.
No,
Yeah, it's something that we sort of pride ourselves on, I guess, for lack of a better word.
and going on to, I guess, a bit more. I like to always kind of finish the last half an hour with like a bit more of the personal understanding your mindset. What were kind of some of the biggest challenges you had to face while building this, and some of the biggest hurdles you had to overcome personally, as one of the leaders of this business and as an individual growing up through a business as well?
I mean, yeah, I think it is about you know, to what you touched on before, like being able to let stuff go. I think, you know, one of the biggest founder failures, and I would say, you know, I'm not particularly good at saying we're good at stuff, but I think something that we've done quite well is like know when to get the hell out of the way. You know, we've had a couple of moments along the journey where it was like, shit, we are totally out of our depth and we don't know what we're doing, and this problem we actually don't know how to fix. And you know, at that point, the kind of the wrong thing to do as a founder is go, but I founded the business, so I must know. So I'm going to plow on and like absolutely do it my way, and like be obstinate and cause a whole lot of drama and noise and pain. What you really need to do is go and find the best person who has got the most experience that you can afford to come in and help you deal with that problem, and allow them to deal with it. And I think we've done that quite well, in that we've always invested in, you know, constant battle with our board around like head office, you know, the percentage of our turnover we spend on our head office, and hiring people who are going to like help us forward that conversation. But we've always wanted to be there. We've always wanted to be like dealing with the problems we have in front of us, rather than not being able to deal with them because we're kind of saving money on stuff. And I think it, you know, frees myself and James up to think about the next thing quite often, which is the stuff that, you know, people aren't necessarily thinking about so much. So yeah, I think that's been something that we've done quite well. Is that, you know, we have now a really strong management team. We're with them all day yesterday actually, and like, you know, we have a managing director who's been with us 6 years, who absolutely gets what we're about, who, you know, lives and breathes it. Finance director's been with us 10 years, and again, like just similarly, just completely understands what we're about. We've got people director and ops director, and then we've got head ofs in various departments, you know, across many departments now. And yeah, like, you know, it's amazing to watch that team take it on to the next level. You know, with us kind of going, oh, we feel about this and we want to do B Corp. What does that look like? And, you know, throwing in those kind of curveballs that maybe no one else is really thinking about.
How did you deal with COVID as well? Because obviously the hospitality industry was decimated with that. And I know you guys did the food boxes and gave the recipes out to people. But when that first hit, like, what was the things going through your mind going, right, this is it, it's done? Or how did you kind of battle through that time?
That was easy, mate. Easiest time I ever did. Yeah. It was really fucking intense. Yeah. It was, yeah, absolutely existential. I think I had a very strange emotion at the time, which was kind of like, you know, I think a big part of like being a successful founder, and this is probably not a very kind of good mental health thing, but like that feeling of constantly being on the cusp of failure is kind of what keeps you going a bit, of like, shit, if I don't like put in every hour every day all the time, it will fall over. And that feeling that, you know, you're ultimately responsible for that I still have that feeling today, which rightly or wrongly is just a thing. But I did remember having quite a weird emotion when COVID happened of being like, do you know what the good news is that if this totally goes under, it won't be my fault. Like, because like no one could have perceived or dealt with this problem coming down the tracks. So I did have a weird emotion around that kind of thing. But yeah, it was really existential. We didn't know how to begin to deal with it. I guess it was the first time, to the earlier point of like we looked up at the board and they were like, I don't know, like like we've never dealt with anything like this. And so you were kind of completely feeling your own way. I think we did a great job as a senior team of like triaging the situation and like understanding the problems and dealing with them one by one. So we obviously employ a lot of Italians, for example. So we potentially more than other hospitality businesses had a very strong early warning system here of like Italians going, hey, this is kicking off. My mum's calling me saying, what the hell am I doing going to work? I'm not going to come to work. And that probably came like 3 weeks before others. We got to a point where a lot of people were saying like, why are you making us go to work? This is like irresponsible. We basically came to the conclusion that we were like, our response back was like, look, if you don't want to come to work, that's absolutely fine. We respect that. Like, we won't be able to pay you, but if you want to take leave from work, that's great. Our MO as a company is we don't know what the hell is coming here, but what we do know is that we don't have unlimited resources. So every pound that we take is keeping everyone in a job for a bit longer. And therefore, our MO is to just trade as much as we possibly can. We're not going to close anything down until we're legally told we have to, because we just know that every pound coming in is another week that we can pay the wages. And that's the attitude. If you don't want to come because you're worried for your own personal safety, we're here for you. We're here for that. Don't need to come, but you won't be paid. But for everyone else, the MO is stay open, take the money where it's to be taken, and like let's wait and see what happens. So we did that basically. There was a week that was a horror week where like Boris had come out and basically said, "Don't go to restaurants and bars," but he hadn't kind of done anything to like mitigate against that for those businesses. So obviously, like our sales just fell off a cliff. And that was the week where everyone was like, "What the hell are you doing? When you just close?" I think a lot of businesses took the decision to close. With that, took some pretty tough decisions around like basically making a whole swathes of their company redundant because they were like, "Well, we're closed." So we were like, "No, we're going to stay going until we know what we're up against." And we did that. And then I think on the Friday of that week they announced the furlough, and I remember watching that and just being in floods of tears, all of us watching it on Zoom and like drinking Stella and crying a lot. And when they announced, because you remember, we didn't know what they were going to cover. I remember at the time that the announcement happened, it was like best case scenario they'll cover 60% of wages, which is obviously amazing, but it's just like, God, that's just not enough for people. I don't think, like, people are already up against it, and then when they came out and said 80%, it was like, Jesus Christ, this is amazing. Like, we're literally going to be able to save everyone's jobs. And so we didn't make anyone redundant. Everyone went on furlough. I think we probably sat there slightly, then it's a kind of frantic, like, right, we've got to get out, we've got to close them all down, we've got to, make sure they're all kind of boarded up. And you kind of have this sort of zombie apocalypse yeah. vision in your head of like, people kind of smashing in doors, their pizza dough or whatever. Yeah, I had to do all that phase. And I think probably we sat, I wouldn't even say we sat for a week of like, okay, now what? And then my brother, was like, I think it'd be cool if we sent like pizza kits, like all the stuff you need to make pizza at home through the post. Wouldn't that be a cool thing to do? So he sent me one, and it arrived like an elephant attack on it. It was a disaster, but it was cold. It was like at temperature, and I was like, maybe there's something in this. And I think by first week of April we had like it ready to go. And it was literally like Blue Peter. We made it ourselves. But we opened up one pizzeria in Victoria from which we did Deliveroo, because at that point we already had started to get emails from managers going, I'm bored out of my mind. Like, why don't we just open the pizzerias again? Not from everyone. Everyone dealt with it in their own way. But we were certainly getting emails from enough managers being like, if I had to stay like this for 3 months, I can't. So we were like, right, we'll open one store, we'll do Deliveroo, and then for a bit of fun, we'll do these kits. And I think we put 50 up for sale on Instagram on day one, expecting to hopefully sell those within a week. and we sold them in like 2 minutes.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and then we sold like another 50 the next day. That was Wednesday morning. Thursday morning we sold another 50. I was like building the Shopify page as we went. Uh, and then on day three, it was like, right, we got two options here. We either, very, very slowly grow this because there's obviously a demand for it. Everyone's stuck at home. We either very, very slowly, and we have no production facility at all. We don't even know how to make one, let alone. Anyway, we either slowly build our facilities and our production things, and we kind of ramp it up, or we just take as much money as we can possibly take, as quickly as we take, and then figure out the rest. And we did the latter. So we put 1,100 kits up for sale on Friday morning. They didn't even have a delivery date. They were like, you will get them by the end of May. And we sold 1,100 in under an hour. Still our busiest ever trading hour, I think. And we just went from there. And by February 21, we were doing 10,000 kits a week. It was crazy.
Innovation
it was
at its best, isn't it?
crazy, and it saved the business. And we still do it, and it's still a phenomenal product. It is so much a smaller business than it was, or part of the business than it was then. But yeah, I mean, it genuinely saved us through COVID.
No, I mean, that ability to think on the spot and do that as well, like credit to your brother for having like the kind of thought and the balls. So we should still try because, as you said, a lot of people were there going, let's just sit tight and see what happens. And
Yeah,
actually, as you said, as a founder, you have to keep moving. You can't be still any day, can you?
I think there was undoubtedly a feeling amongst me and James that, the business at that point had started to grow to a size where it did have procedures and processes. And, I guess we were starting to go like, well, what is our role in this now? Because, this is about like creating a system that delivers consistently and for lots of people. And so, you do start to think like, well, what's the point of me? But actually then COVID came along and it was like, oh, well, this is amazing. Like where all the people who were, process driven were a bit like, well, what the fuck do we do now? And me and James are like, hey, why don't we try this? So that kind of feeling of nothing to loseness kind of came back, which is nice.
Do you know what it reminds me of? So I did an interview with Dr. Mark Bloomfield, who's a Cambridge professor, and he teaches innovation at the Judge Business School for CFOs and CEOs from around the world. And he
Right.
came on, and one of his main messages was, as adults, we forget how fundamental and important it is to play and try new things. And like you are
Yeah.
as a child, when you learn to do things, you get up, you fall over, you get back down, you do it, you do it, you do it. And in
Yeah.
these kind of environments and situations, you have to have that kind of innovating play mindset. We'll try this, we'll try that. And it's not as kind of like detrimental to you. It doesn't impact you as much, but keep going, keep trying what you can do to do it.
Yeah.
And that is the essence of what you've just described in some ways.
Yeah.
How can we think on our feet? And you said you almost came alive in that thing where people go, what do we do? And you go, right, let's see. Let's try this, let's try that. And it's
100%.
fascinating.
It's definitely there. And I think as a company, we try and keep a healthy dose of that all the time. Like, we're always trying new things, and some of them don't work so brilliantly and some of them do. But, we always want to be pushing something else new that's interesting into the company and seeing how that lands. And sometimes that creates our best successes. Other times it's been a total nightmare. But, none of our sites are, the same cookie cutter, like just do what we've done before again and again. It's always trying like, what's new can we do in this one? So like we're just about to open in Chelsea. It's going to have a cinema in it.
Oh,
And
wow.
like, be able to rent that out. And like, it's a bit of fun, but, we've got pizzeria in Brighton that's got a football pitch in the basement. Like in Leeds, we put a big flamingo that does soft serve ice cream, like just fun stuff that's like, wouldn't it be fun if? And so, yeah, trying to keep that in the company, I think is important to keep it authentic, to use your word. It makes it feel like there's a human at the end of it rather than just a boardroom.
Yeah, well, it's like going into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, isn't it? You look around the corner, oh, what have they got here? What have they got in this one? And it's kind of bringing awe and excitement to the
Yeah,
guest and the client, really, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah.
No, interesting. Well, okay, I'm going to go more onto these kind of personal ones again. So, what kind of expectations do you put on yourself as a leader?
I think, I don't know. I guess I want to be a sort of compassionate, fair leader. Like fairness is so crucial. And I think, the world isn't fair, quote unquote, but you see firsthand potentially how capitalism can not level the pitch, but sort of make it even less fair. And I think we really want to try and fight against that and be, I'm not saying that we're doing anything particularly revolutionary, but we're trying to make sure that like it is an environment that is meritocracy based, that is about the best people getting, the best opportunities, and a place where you can feel safe and happy being yourself. Um, but it's silly little things like why should a 16-year-old be paid less if they're bloody good at their job than a 21-year-old because the government says you can pay a 16-year-old less? Like, I don't really understand that. Like, the 16-year-old's not very good. Obviously, let's give them an opportunity, but they're not very good. We should probably be hiring someone who is good.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly.
like I don't really buy into this. Like, so we don't have that, for example, in our company. Everyone's paid the kind of national living wage for the, for the top tier age group, and that's just fairness. And like all tips have always been shared fairly with everyone. Like, and hopefully we listen to people and we give them the best opportunity to be themselves. And they're my favorite opportunities when something goes wrong for someone and we rally together to like fix it, and 6 months later that person is in a great position in the company, rather than like, oh, you had your opportunity and you messed it up, so you're gone. Like, they're the moments where I feel proud of what we do.
Yeah, they're amazing. The biggest self-limiting belief that you've overcome, whether in business or at
Self
school?
self-limiting belief. uh I don't know. I mean, I was always a guy in sports day who was just shit at sports day and was always like, why is there a day to celebrate this thing that some people are really good at, but there's no day to celebrate the shit that other people are good at? So, like, I guess I'm quite used to sort of, I don't know, turning up and I don't know. It's a hard question because I don't, I think we've thrown ourselves into a lot of stuff, but it's always felt like we've got nothing to lose
Yeah.
a bit.
Have you ever suffered from imposter syndrome in this kind of situation where you're kind of like going, God, what the hell are we doing here? And I know it's a big buzzword now at the moment, that, and
I
a lot of
definitely,
people love to
I
talk about it.
definitely get the feeling like, oh, well, it's only a matter of time before someone figures it out a bit. Definitely have a bit of that. And I have it's weird for me and James because we now employ so many people that have worked in so many places at all levels, from, waiters to managers to MDs and everything in between. Uh, we've never worked anywhere else. Like, really, like I worked in an advertising agency for a small bit, and James worked in TV for a small bit. But ultimately, like, we've only been in hospitality. We've only ever been in one company, and so like the context of the stuff that we see as normal, and everyone else is like, "Oh my god, this is amazing! Like, I can't believe you as a company do this, that, or the other." We just don't have that context, so it just, to us, it seems like common sense that you would, look after people who've been with you 5 years, or give them a sabbatical, or, give people a day off a year to go and do something that they love because, it's about the ethos of the company and like being happier every day and this kind of stuff. But everyone else just looked at it and goes, this is mental. Like, no one does this. And so I love protecting that stuff. I think it's really, really great. And I think it is what makes it special. But like I say, me and James just don't have the context of what it's like to work for a organization that doesn't think like that. So, it's always so encouraging when I'm sure he won't mind, but yeah, one of our employees' wives came up the other day, and his daughter also worked for us, and she was like, I just want to say, like, she's just started working for your company. She moved actually from one side to another, but she's like, she's moved to this new site, this new team, and she feels so comfortable in this team that she has like decided to shave all of her hair off. And I just need you to know, like, how insane that is, that this is a new group of people who are together, and my daughter feels so comfortable in this space that it was just like, it was a nice way of looking at it, of like, oh yeah, that is actually what we're trying to do, and like, be yourself and enjoy yourself. They are our values. And but to be yourself, you've got to feel totally comfortable. So one of our other values is be yourself, push yourself, enjoy yourself, and respect others. And I think the latter begets the former. But yeah, that was just a nice way of looking at it. Of like, yeah, we do want to create an environment that is high performing, and it's not about slacking or having an easy life, but it is about, we're only making pizza. We're not saving the world. Let's do a great job, but we've got to make sure that we all are happy doing it. We don't need to
Yeah, I know.
cause any major drama to get there.
Yeah. I mean, that must feel really amazing for you to be relayed that kind of story as well. And, you know,
But
as you
the
said,
thing that's amazing about it is that we had nothing to do with it.
oh, yeah, no, exactly. But you'd set the seeds. Do you know what I mean? You'd set the
We,
environment for it to
yeah,
grow. And she
yeah,
felt comfortable enough to go, I can be who I want to be here.
yeah.
And it was a radical shift in who she was.
That is a new site that we hadn't we hadn't really been involved in hiring any of the people. We hadn't, we're obviously involved, but in a very kind of you know,
Loosely.
loose kind of way. And it's so amazing when those things happen and they're like in the image of what you set out to do, but you didn't do them. That they're the moments where you're like, oh yeah, this feels
Yeah.
great.
No, fantastic. What's the best lesson you've learned from your parents?
I mean, annoyingly, my mum, uh, it just knows a lot about hospitality, and she comes and says stuff, and you're like, yeah, that is right. It's annoying how much you do know about this. So, I mean, loads and loads. I think something that she always said about particular hospitality was like, don't get high on your own supply. Basically, like, don't go and take 10 mates to Pizza Pilgrims on a Friday night and get pissed. And I still feel hugely uncomfortable ever being served in a Pizza Pilgrims by anyone. Like, obviously, occasionally we have to take people for like a business meeting if we're trying to, show a potential new landlord what we're about. Then I'll take people to Pizza Pilgrims and I'll go in early and I'll explain it to the team and I'll, you know, but yeah, I would never take a group of mates and get pissed at Pizza Pilgrims and, expect people to be serving me. And like, my mum always used to say that and I've always stuck with it.
No, brilliant. What does success mean to you?
I mean, ultimately, it's got to be about being happy. It can't be about anything else. I think that obviously that's such a non-answer because it's just sort of shifting it along one logical step because what being happy to the next person is different. But it's got to be rounded. It's got to feel like you're in control of it. To me, like it's not. It's certainly not about like purely financial gains. It's about being comfortable financially, but not. You know, I think people who seek really high wealth, like I think you cut off as much at least as you gain because you alienate so much of your life by being incredibly wealthy. And yes, you open new doors, but who knows if they're better. But yeah, very lucky. I've got great family at home, and I think we work too hard for sure, but I think we make enough time for each other. Probably could always make more, but I'm into what I'm into, and I'm able to go and do that. I love watching live sport and live music, and having a record player, and I don't have particularly complicated life choices, but yeah, I'm able to do all those things that I want to do. There's nothing I'm like, God, I wish I could do that thing. There's plenty of things that I would love to be able to do that I just don't even consider. Like I can't even tell you what they are. But yeah, I think we're not certainly not in a position where it's like, God, I need a huge amount of money to fund an incredibly extravagant lifestyle. But it is about knowing that the thing we've created, which Pizza Pilgrims is essentially like a third child for me, that it's happy and flourishing, and that it's full of people that are happy and flourishing, and that's the bit I care about. And when I hear that someone isn't happy and flourishing, that's when I'm not happy. And that's the same with my kids, my wife, and Pizza Pilgrims. Like it all needs to be, the thing you've created. You want to just make sure it's going out into the world being happy.
Have you and James proved that the saying "never do business with family and friends" is wrong? Question I thought. I've always been told that by my family.
Is
Never
that
go
a
to business
saying?
with family. I've always been told that, but it might be
I
just a saying. It might be a saying in my family.
I mean, we're very lucky. Like we have completely different skill sets, completely different interests. James is a very, very easygoing guy, and is hugely creative and comes up with all the new kind of ideas that we have. And we honestly have not really had a crossword in 13 years, and we still speak every day. And I don't really get it. I mean, if it's inequitable, I get it. Like going to work for your sibling, that's a shit show. I can totally see that because that's just created this insane like imbalance that you don't want to dwell on. I would say, but I would say that's equally hard. If you've got one incredibly successful sibling and one sibling who's struggled, that that's difficult at the best of times. But if one is working with the other, that just feels like doubly difficult. So working for a family member or a family business, and that I get. Starting something with your brother is actually incredible because you're absolutely trust each other. You're on the same page, exactly the same time. You both have the same, outlook, and yeah, I think that must be totally different. But certainly, disappointingly, for the kind of sure you want some slander.
No,
There is
I
none to be
don't at
had.
all. I don't at all. I'm on your side of the belief. I've always challenged my family to that. Actually, I think you can work with your family and friends, as you said, if you have an equal kind of position and you both have a clear idea, the same direction you want to go in.
Yeah, yeah,
I think
exactly.
it's super powerful. Okay, final two questions. What are the keys to succeeding and following your dreams?
Uh, Set your targets low. uh, Joking aside, I think there's something in that. I think particularly we've always been pretty programmed to be like aiming for the stars, and I think find out what your actual ambition is and then go after that. I think it's good. We literally started Pizza Pilgrims with a view to having a summer job, and have kind of nudged those goals on, I guess, as we go. But we've never set like super scary goals for the company. We've grown at the right rate, and I think those. I don't know. It's different for everyone, and Amazon and Facebook wouldn't be built if those people didn't have insane self belief and goals. And but from our point of view, like lots of little successes has been nice, and not having that feeling, not lying there awake at night going, God, I've taken on like £10 million worth of debt to build this like insane thing, and I'm not anywhere. I wouldn't want that. That doesn't, to me, that kind of gap between your goal and your where you are is inversely correlated to happiness to me. So yeah, I think set achievable things that are pushing yourself. This is we talk a lot about one of our values, push yourself, which is like it's about being out of your comfort zone but not drowning. And I think that is that's a hard thing to manage. It's like you go for a run or something, like you want to be pushing yourself but not like breaking yourself. And so yeah, no, I think we've achieved a lot in Peter Pilgrim, but it amazes me actually if you tracked it back how kind of slowly it built, and maybe it's sped up a bit in the last few years, but that's because you've got the resource and the time and the experience to do it. It amazes me how many businesses come to me and go, well, I've got this one restaurant and it's going pretty well. Like, we're not quite making money yet, but we're on the track to. So I'm going to go and raise money to open 3 next year. And I'm like, what planet are you on? Like best will in the world. That's just not going to, it's not going to end well. And, I've been proven wrong occasionally and been proven right occasionally. And I don't want to see anyone fail, but it amazes me how quickly people want to just like, they want a shortcut. And I don't think there is one.
Interesting. No, very interesting. Okay, final question. What's the one lesson you want to teach your children about life and happiness?
Uh, what is the one lesson I want to teach my children? I mean, the one thing I think about my life is we really, really try in all instances to do the best by people, whoever they are. And it amazes me how often, someone who's worked for Pilgrims or, has been involved in some way from years back or whatever, comes back into your life in some way. And, that doesn't necessarily be a particularly influential way, but bump into them on the street or whatever. Like, I don't know how people live their life like screwing other people over. I just do not understand it because it just constantly comes, life just constantly comes back at you in the weirdest ways. And so, if I had one life lesson, it's like, just do your best by everyone you meet. And yeah, that's such a sort of like high and mighty and silly thing to say, but like that's the stuff that, it's nice to go to bed at night going like, I didn't screw anyone over today. Like that's yeah, I just, and it never occurred to me that I would, but it amazes me how many people think, built on things like Dragon Den and The Apprentice, that, business is about like using the throat of the next guy to get to where you want to get to. I just don't think you build anything sustainable and real like that. And that's how you end up being at the top of the tree, miserable, because no one likes you. So yeah, I think that would be my lesson. Is like, everyone you meet, whatever their involvement in your life or not involvement in your life, just like be your best self to that person, and only good can come of that.
Yeah, there's that saying, treat people well on the way up because you never know if you'll need them on your way back down.
Yeah, that feels quite more self-fulfilling, because that's like ultimately when I'm in the shit, they'll come and look
Well,
after me, which
true.
is kind of the point.
True.
I mean, I
Yeah.
guess it gets into that episode of Friends where Phoebe and Chandler are arguing, like, is there ever a charitable act? Like,
Yeah.
surely everything you do is ultimately
It's selfish.
serve
Yeah.
yourself. So yeah, yeah. But I mean, obviously there is a truth to that. Like, it's basically about whenever you meet that person again. But it doesn't necessarily mean that person needs to be someone who's useful to you again.
No, yeah,
it's just someone who, you just don't need that like awkward, oh God, that person, really didn't do well by that person in your life.
Yeah. No, exactly. Thom, thank you so much. Outlaw number
No
27.
worries.
It's been a really fantastic conversation with you, and I'm really grateful for your honesty and openness and hearing your story. And
My
wishing
pleasure.
you all the
Thanks
success
for having
moving
me.
forward. And thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening to the Valley of Outlaws podcast. If you enjoyed it, please do share it with friends and family, and please see all of our news across our socials.